Low volume, high intensity is the quickest, easiest way to gain a shit ton of muscle in less time than you've seen in your typical bullshit programs. And I'm going to show you exactly how you can implement it into your training to gain more muscle than you have ever gained in your training before. If you're just starting off, this is the perfect program to get into. First off, we have to understand why high volume training doesn't work as effectively for muscle growth. I'm going to start off with this. Your job as a trainee is to train, recover, and then train again as soon as you have recovered. I know that says TRT. We're not going to be taking TRT, all right? But your job is to train, recover, and then train again as soon as the muscles have recovered and grown, okay? This typically takes around 36 hours. So the recovery period takes around 36 hours after your training session for around 95% plus of muscle growth to actually occur. It might take a little bit longer for some people, it might take a little bit shorter, okay? But this 36-hour spot is usually the sweet spot. Now, I said recover, I said grow. This 36-hour period is what will grow you. I didn't say that was the amount of time it would take for fatigue to go away. So how sore you feel after each session. The fatigue aspect of training could go away shorter or longer, depending on how much volume you do. And I'm going to explain to you exactly why that works. Because we have to understand that growth and fatigue are not coherent. They are not the same thing. Being more fatigued does not mean you are growing more. But what fatigue does do is it pushes back your next training session because it affects force production, how much intensity you can bring into each session, and how you feel in general, right? Being incredibly sore, being incredibly fatigued makes you feel like shit. You don't want to get up in the morning. You wake up and your entire body is aching. That is not the same as growing more. It's just being incredibly fatigued. So our question then is, how can we minimize fatigue? Because if we can minimize fatigue, then we can train again sooner. As I outlined, your goal as a trainee is to train, recover, and then train again as soon as you possibly can to maximize growth in a certain period of time. And low training volume works to minimize fatigue whilst still providing a ton of growth. And I'm going to explain to you exactly why. Just give me a second. The first set of any exercise is by far the most effective. If you have an intense, good first set, it will provide just as much growth as the next 5 sets combined. After your first set, it would take an extra 5 sets to replicate the same amount of stimulus from the first set. What does this mean? Each set has diminishing returns in the amount of growth it provides. So, set 1 gives 1 unit of stimulus. Set 2 gives 0.5 units of stimulus. Set 3, around 0.3. Set 4, even lower. It's probably going to be about 0.15. Something like that. And then you can imagine set 5 and set 6 being even worse. All right. So this first set, incredibly effective. You know, the first 2 sets, the third set as well, they're usually pretty effective, as you can see. After that, it's kind of pointless. But what fatigue does, set 1, 1 unit of fatigue. Set 2, 1 unit of fatigue. Set 3, 1 unit of fatigue. Set 4, 1 unit of fatigue. So if you're 4 sets in and you're gaining 0.15 times the amount of stimulus as the first set, but just as much fatigue as the first set, what is the point in this? Like, seriously, ask yourself, what is the point in doing this? Because by having all of this fatigue, you are delaying your next training session. Because as we've already outlined, fatigue delays your training by reducing the amount of intensity you can bring to each session whilst just making you feel like shit, all right? So everything from here onwards is typically dog shit. And then people see this and they think, okay, well, I'll just do 3 sets on each exercise. No. I mean 3 sets per muscle group. When I go into the gym and I train, for example, my chest, any body part, my triceps, my biceps, I will do a maximum of 3 sets per body part. 3 sets for my chest, that's it. 3 sets for my arms, that's it. I don't want to see you doing 3 sets on your chest and then going to a different chest exercise and doing another 3 sets. It's the same thing. You're going to be training your chest again, but the fact is you've already completed 3 intense chest sets. So this just happens, okay? So if stimulus goes down and down and down and down, but fatigue goes up and up and up and up, why would we not just do this, the first 2 sets? Because we're still gonna get a bunch of stimulus and then miss out on all of that extra fatigue, which would delay our next training session. So in that case, let me ask you a question. If you're going to train, maybe you're on a push-pull leg split, maybe you're on a split that has a chest day, a back day, an arm day. If you go into the gym, how many sets are you doing on a chest day for your chest? Probably 10, at least, if you're going in just to train your chest, right? If we've just outlined that even set 4 has dog shit stimulus, what do you think set 10 is gonna look like? Nothing. Like genuinely nothing, but you're gonna rack up all of that fatigue. This is why the full body training approach is the best program you will ever have for training. And for example, let's compare full body to a push-pull leg split, all right? Now, if you don't know, push-pull legs basically means you have a push day, so your triceps, your chest, your shoulders, that's one day. The next day is pull, so biceps, back, etc. Legs, self-explanatory, okay? So that's a 3-day rotation. You do push-pull legs, rest, and then push-pull legs, and then rest, okay? So that's just over a week's worth of training. What is the training frequency on that? Okay, if you have a push day and you go in and you train push, so a bunch of chest, a bunch of triceps, a bunch of shoulders, you then have 3 days of recovery afterwards before your next push day, right? And we've already outlined that it only takes 36 hours to recover. Now, you may feel it takes longer to recover from your push day simply because of higher fatigue. Higher fatigue, as I said, it makes you feel like shit. It makes you feel like stuff is happening even when it isn't. And this is why my clients and my coaching make so much progress, because we manage fatigue so well. We optimize training frequency, we optimize intensity. So push-pull legs has 2 times per week frequency. What does full body have? Well, usually 3.5 times frequency. And the reason is you have 3.5 times frequency is if you are able to go in and train each body part for 2 to 3 sets maximum, go home, recover, and then have 1 rest day and then train straight away the day after. So full body session, rest, another full body session, rest, another full body session. Over the course of 2 weeks, that stacks up to 7 sessions, all right? So 3.5 times frequency. That is a lot better than 2 times frequency in terms of growth, right? Because that's an average of 3.5 periods of growth as opposed to 2 periods of growth, 2 periods of muscle recovery from training. And that means that over the course of the week, full body just absolutely dominates in terms of how much growth you accumulate. I'm dead serious, and this has worked for so many people, myself included, my clients included. Now that we've outlined why full body and low volume training works so well, I'm going to tell you exactly how you're going to implement it. On our full body program, we're going to do full body every other day, okay? So 1 full body training day, 1 rest day, repeat. That's basically it. Training should be simple. This is exactly how we're doing it. Your typical full body training session should be around 5 to 6 exercises maximum. This should take you around 2 hours, maybe just under, if you're optimizing your rest times properly. Usually 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes rest between sets is fine, right? If you're stretched for time, you can even just do 1 set, right, on each exercise. Because as we've already outlined, the first set is by far the most effective. So don't be afraid just to do 1 set if you're stretched for time. But 2 sets, 3 sets, usually I prefer 2, is going to be the sweet spot. So we're going to have 5 to 6 exercises, and we're going to do 2 sets per exercise. So 5 to 6 sets, 2 sets per exercise, and each set is going to consist of between 4 and 6 reps, and I'll explain to you exactly why in a second. Bam, that's it. And each exercise has to target a different body part. I don't want to see you doing 2 or 3 exercises for your chest or 2 or 3 exercises for your back. We just want to focus on 1 body part and then move on straight away, because that's how we minimize volume and minimize fatigue. Now, since we've already outlined why this works so effectively, I kind of just want to zoom in on the 4 to 6 reps for a second. So first off, we have to understand that intensity is everything when it comes to training. And the reason is because all the reasons we train for is something called GAS. Now this stands for General Adaptation Syndrome. Now, General Adaptation Syndrome, or GAS, was a theory proposed by a guy called Hans Selye. And this theory basically says that when your body feels like it is in danger, it is forced to adapt. You see this in your everyday life. When you get ill, your immune system gets better. You are forced to adapt because your body thinks you're in danger. When you're born, the bottoms of your feet are incredibly soft. They adapt because of the constant stress, the constant pressure, which would lead to danger, right? In the gym, when we apply heavy, intense weights, your muscles are forced to adapt when that danger response system kicks into place. So, what does this mean? Our work needs to be intense enough to cause this to take place. And I understand that this is a lot of information we're going through in a very short period of time, but by all means, go back and rewatch this if you need to. So we need high intensity to activate this general adaptation syndrome. This is why people talk about going to failure a lot in the gym, because it activates this. And this is the whole purpose we train in the gym. This is the only thing that allows muscle growth to take place. If having high intensity means you need to get close to failure, and failure being where you physically cannot move the weight, even if you gave it everything you had, we need to be able to feel what failure is. Have you ever noticed when you do a high rep set in the gym, you feel a burn in your muscles? It really hurts. It feels like there's acid in your muscles. There is acid in your muscles. That's exactly what that burn is, okay? Now this happens because of a specific energy system, which only takes place in high rep ranges, okay? It only takes place in high rep ranges. If you were to do low reps, for example, 4 to 6, you would not feel the burn. Does this mean growth isn't happening? No. This burn is not the same as growth. I train all the time and I never ever feel the burn because I do not go that high in reps. This is our goal, and I'll tell you exactly why. You can get amazing results whilst feeling the burn. But what the burn does is it confuses you in terms of how much intensity you are actually applying to the muscle. Because how are you supposed to feel how close you are to failure when your muscle is in a huge amount of pain? I'm telling you, you can't, not nearly as easily. Being in a low rep range and staying out of this burn zone will allow you to feel what failure is and how close you are to failure 10 times more easily. I know people who have plateaued and not made any progress for ages because they don't know what actual intensity and actual failure feels like. And we need to get close to failure because that's the only way to stimulate intensity. And that leads to this, right? So if we stay in this 4 to 6 rep range, we will be able to feel intensity more easily, and we will be able to get more stimulus done in less time because we can judge the intensity better, and also doesn't take as long to do 6 reps as it does 15, 20. Does this mean that 4 to 6 reps is the only way to grow? Absolutely not, right? My first year of training, I did 12 to 15 reps exclusively on almost every exercise. Did I make great progress? Yes, because I had every other factor dialed in. Would I have made better progress doing this? Yes, right? So this is not the only way to train. This is just the most effective. Now, to summarize, I'm going to go back to this again. We want low volume, high intensity, full body training with 2 sets per exercise. We want 4 to 6 reps per set and around 5 to 6 exercises. And for each full body session, we want 1 rest day. Why 1 rest day? Because this will account for 36 hours of recovery. And you might be thinking, well, hang on, 1 day, that's only 24 hours. No. If you train on Monday and then you have a rest day on Tuesday and you train again at the same time on Wednesday as you did Monday, that is a 48-hour period of recovery, leaving even more just as a buffer for growth. So you have 48 hours of recovery between session, you should be fine. Now, you will only be able to get away with having one rest day if your fatigue is low, which means we need to stick to this 2 sets. We need to stick to it. If you go over it, your next training session will be delayed. What does that mean? You will have less growth over the course of the week because you will not be able to have as many training sessions, and therefore you will not be able to have as much growth. Does that kind of make sense? So, low volume, high intensity. I'm actually going to add one more, which I forgot to add. High frequency. Low volume and high intensity allows for high frequency, and high frequency is exactly what we want. This is a lot to take in, but I can promise you, if you follow this style of training properly, you will make more gains in less time per week than any other program there is. And I say that with bold confidence. Like, I'm willing to bet that. If this did actually help, subscribe, because I'm fucking excited to see your progress on this new style of training. Drop me a follow on Instagram and use code CoachWill on Applied Nutrition. I'll see you next time.